right. Welcome to CRM Tuesdays. I'm so excited to be here. This is our second episode. I'm here with Omi Diaz Cooper from Diaz Cooper, and I am Wendy Lieber from Content Bacon. And we love getting together and talking all things CRM. We both bring different perspectives. Omi and her team are the experts in probably more than HubSpot implementation, but for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to say really HubSpot CRM implementation. And we really are experts on the strategy side of the CRM and how to pair strategy with content. So welcome, Omi. I'm excited to have this next conversation with you.
Me too. Thank you. I'm excited to be here today and to have this fun discussion with you. This is going to be a great topic.
The topic of today is proper versus improper use of AI and why it matters. I know HubSpot has invested a lot over the last couple years trying to stay up to date with AI and offer its users more AI integrations. So give me a little bit of state of the union on this. Like, how's this going? Where do AI integrations in HubSpot often go right, or where are you seeing them go wrong?
There's a little bit to unpack there. Let's start with what HubSpot is doing. So, HubSpot is really not looking to cobble together AI into their system. They're really looking to make it an integral and central part of the HubSpot platform. So that's number one. So their AI tool, which is called Breeze, has a lot of different layers to it. There are Breeze functions such as contact enrichment and activity summaries and things like that, that are just kind of working right in the tool. And then there are Breeze agents. So they have a social agent, a prospecting agent, and a marketing agent, I believe. The agents are now going to be embedded in the tool, but they're going to help you do specific functions. Right. And so HubSpot's really leading with AI first, and AI as a central part of their system. Now, as far as where I've seen things go wrong, the first thing, and you're probably very familiar with this, is just an over reliance on AI without human intervention. So I am a big believer in AI with a human in the loop. And so what that means is you use AI to start something, research or a draft of something, but then you always come back to the human to review it before it gets released. I can't think of too many AI tools right now, HubSpot or otherwise, that you can just let them run on their own and have a really successful outcome from that. Not having a human in the loop is one of the biggest issues I've seen with AI adoption.
Say more about perhaps some of the AI implementation trends in HubSpot that might be overrated or misunderstood. And perhaps it's more of what you're talking about, where you can use these AI agents or tools to generate content or suggested content. But again, you got to make sure it's on brand, that it's authentic. Is that the main one, or are some of these others? You mentioned the prospecting, I guess some of the sales tools. I'm curious how those are working, and are those really giving end users, insights and helping them support the sales process?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say a lot of those tools are actually underrated right now. And I can name a couple that I think are very underrated. So the first one is your AI summaries of activity. So if I'm a salesperson and I'm about to get on maybe a second or third call with a prospect, these are really powerful tools that can help you understand what other conversations have been had in the past. Maybe you're part of a large team and other people have talked to the prospect before, and you need that context. So using that activity summary right in the CRM contact record, there's the standard one, and then there's a button you can click that says, give me a deeper summary, and it gives you even more information, and it pulls in from every call, every email, every meeting, and things that are embedded in the contact records to give you a deeper, richer picture of what was this customer looking for, what did they ask about, what were their concerns, what were their pain points. Along with that, there is also, if you use HubSpot with one of my favorite implementations, is HubSpot with Grain. So Grain is like a note taker, video note taker. They actually have a summary that follows the revenue operations spiced model, which is a model for finding out what's the situation, what's the pain point, et cetera, et cetera. And it literally pulls from those conversations and fills in each of those spiced questions for you as part of the contact record. So that right there
Wow.
is fabulous. So there's the one that is native to HubSpot, which is the activity summary. And then there's the ones that come from tools like Grain, where you can have these templates and have the AI pre-populate them for you. Great way to prep for a call, great way to give more personalized conversations and service to your prospects and customers.
That may tie into the next question, or maybe there's something else that you've uncovered. Efficiency wins. I think about AI in three key buckets when I'm thinking about it for our company and our customers. I think about it and how do we use AI to increase our revenue? How do we use it to decrease cost? And how do we use it to improve efficiencies? And so when it comes to efficiency, what are you seeing in HubSpot? What's a lesser known, maybe a secret that you're aware of, feature that HubSpot has that is can significantly improve productivity?
So there's a couple that I want to talk about. So the first one would be combining the data enrichment. So the Breeze Intelligence data enrichment component, which doesn't fully replace something like Apollo or Zoom Info, but it does it gets you a lot of the way there. So it's more at the company level. You can, enrich the data at the company level, but you also have intent data that is now native inside of HubSpot with Breeze. And if you couple that with being able to use that in your sales sequences, oh my gosh, that is an efficiency boost right
Wow.
there for your salespeople. On the content side, we're going to want to start with a really high quality piece of content that has either been wholly human generated or human heavily influenced and cleaned up. And using the Content Hub content remix function, that's an efficiency boost right there. So let's say that you have a white paper or a long form blog, right? You can upload that into Content Remix and it can create a landing page for you. It can create a series of emails for you. It can create social media posts that are based on that piece of content, and even video. So you can create a whole slew of supporting materials for your piece of content that normally would have taken you hours and hours, if not days, to produce. And you can just, spit them out. But again, human in the loop. Make sure that somebody reviews it and it's on point.
You're touching on this because obviously these tools allow you to do a lot more faster, but when is it too much? When are we becoming too dependent on these AI tools and maybe, you know, becoming mediocre to general? How do you know if
Yeah.
your team's becoming too dependent on AI tools within HubSpot?
Yeah. So a lot of these tools from a content perspective, you can just kind of sniff it out still a little bit. If it's hasn't been looked at, there's a lot of like catchphrases and words that AI is fond of, and they're too repetitive. But to me, the biggest concern that I have is this training our teams to be so lazy that they're not doing any of their own fact checking, whether it's a research piece or whether it's something that's more thoughtful and in depth that requires a level of expertise, because AI is not at the point where it can replace lived human experience. And so if
Right.
a company has an expertise, for example, in a certain niche, right? So like, for example, we are very heavily involved in the aviation niche. You can't replace the experience of having actually worked with these clients and understanding their lingo and the jargon and the very, very specific pain points that they have. You can't replace that with AI. You
Yeah.
can get a lot of the way there, but you need to bring in some of that expertise and not get too lazy. And letting it just take over, and also in creating workflows. So for example, within HubSpot, you can ask Breeze and it can like generate a workflow for you. Well, what it's not doing is it's not looking at everything else you've got going on to make sure it's not going to break something or duplicate something. It's not going to give you that level, right? It'll create it for you, but it's up to the human to really understand, is this the right workflow? Which part of the revenue operations bow tie are we, solving for? And is this going to step on the toes of something else? We can't let it we can't let it make us so lazy that we're not checking for those things.
Yeah. The lived experiences reminds me, it's like reading about going to Tahiti versus actually going to Tahiti, right? Like you
Right.
can read about it all day, it can sound wonderful. You can look at images, it can make you feel like you're there, but going there and experiencing it is going to be way, way different. So
Yep.
um, I think it's apropos to think about that in terms of how do we keep that human connection alive, that authenticity, and use AI to certainly make us, better, faster, more effective, but not make it so robotic that we're missing that lived experience.
Exactly. Yep.
So in terms of, future proofing, what AI trends should, CRM experts, admins be cautious about investing, too heavily in today?
Again, I think that there's, particularly for companies that maybe have like investor groups that are part of the company, or CEOs that just really are looking to cut a lot of costs. I think that the biggest issue there is making cuts too quickly and not understanding that sometimes your organization has what we call tribal knowledge. And if you don't invest in putting that tribal knowledge into a repository where everybody can access it, you might make cuts in people that are going to really undermine your operations, right? So I think people need to stop thinking about AI as a complete replacement for human beings, and rather figure out how to create efficiency so the human beings can do what they are best at, which is
Yeah,
that creativity, that strategy, that understanding, having a deeper understanding of the repercussions of making certain decisions. I don't think that there's an AI tool that's perfect at that yet. Could it be in the future? Maybe, but
yeah,
we can't just say hit the AI button, right?
right.
You have to, you have to think about, is my data good? Is the AI going to hallucinate because I have incorrect things that I'm feeding it, right? Do I have the structure in place to safeguard my company from the potential risks? And absolutely, if you're in a space like, for example, law, you know we've already seen that AI still does have hallucinations and can
Yeah,
and cause an infinite amount of problems. If you're in a, in an industry that's heavily regulated or has a lot of compliance, can AI help you intake that and process it a lot faster? Absolutely. But you can't just get rid of everybody because it's not perfect, and it's not a replacement again for that experience that someone has that has been doing the job for a long time and understands all of the repercussions connected to it.
well, amazing. Thank you for dropping so many knowledge bombs and sharing some tools and practices that many of us may not know about because we're not as expert at all the things HubSpot offers. I'm going to turn the tables and let you ask me some questions from a content perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is such an important part of the topic, and I love hearing from your expertise about this because again, I think a lot of people think of content when they think about AI. So one of the things I want to ask that I'm really curious to get your take on is, that dichotomy, right, of AI generated versus human driven. So what's your rule of thumb to keep content sounding authentically human, even if it's assisted by AI?
It's a great question and one I get asked often. And my rule of thumb is simple. AI can streamline, it can scale, it can help personalize, but the final voice, whether it's our voice or the customers we're writing for, must always be authentically human. So we never just copy paste AI output. We treat it as a partner, not a replacement. We let AI help us be smarter, faster, better, but our strategists, our creators always add that human layer of empathy, creativity, genuine connection so that it connects with the audience. Because to your point, you can sniff out when it's just AI generated. It has a different feel to it. It lacks soul. And our job is to make sure content has a soul.
So that kind of leads into my next question, which is about personalization. So I love that idea of AI being almost like a teammate or a helper, right? But when can that AI personalization backfire?
I think it backfires when it starts to become or goes from being helpful to creepy, right? If the content feels like overly invasive, overly generic, or robotic, your customers, your audience is just going to tune out and they're going to tune out fast. So our test is always, would it feel good if you got this personally? Would this message resonate with you? And if the answer isn't a resounding hell yes, then we rethink it because we believe AI should amplify our connection, not weaken it. And I've certainly seen where companies that are relying too heavily on it, they're truly weakening their relationship with their audience. And I think, that's so detrimental to a brand where, you may have been working years to build your brand. And all of a sudden, maybe your investors are like, let's cut cost. And all of a sudden you ruin that because you're just being overly generic, overly creepy, and they want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, you can lose a lot of people that way. I read something recently that I wanted to share, which is the test would be if I paid $1 to receive this email, would I be
Mm,
upset that I paid the dollar, or would I be happy that I invested that dollar? And so if we
that's
think about it
great.
in that lens, that'll help us kind of calibrate a little bit. So that kind of leads me to the question of how do we effectively re-engage our leads? How can AI help us do this effectively? Again, without being creepy or robotic or too impersonal.
AI can help re-engage leads when it's subtle, when it's helpful, when it's genuinely valuable. So instead of, kind of more generic automated robotic messages that say, hey, checking in again, using the insights to personalize the re-engagement around where the customer is in their journey, what their true needs or behaviors are.
Mhm.
So making sure that the messages feel thoughtful, timely, and human, like they're coming from a trusted advisor rather than an algorithm. But I think knowing if, being able to use those insights if someone's interacted with your lead nurture, maybe they're constantly opening, constantly reading. You can see what they've clicked on. You can use AI insights to kind of generate that structure and give you that. Because as a human, it's hard sometimes to go in and do that. But the insights give us that information and then you can use AI to kind of create the outline and then use the human to inject the personalization, the authenticity. So when it lands on you, lands in your inbox, you're not for a moment thinking AI created it or you don't care because it's so valuable to you.
I think that's key is that value. And giving value is at the cornerstone of creating trust and credibility in your brand and your content. So talk to me a little bit about what's your strategy for making sure that AI driven content doesn't compromise a brand's credibility.
Yeah, so this is one we've been working on because it's a little bit like the wild, wild west, right? Everyone has access to all the tools. So we created what we're referring to right now is an AI manifesto. And I actually created it as, kind of the leader, the CEO of the company, to really give everyone on our team, my view on how we use AI as content bacon and how they need to think about it being part of the content bacon team. So I'll be happy to share that so others can see. So I do think every company having their version of that is important because they're guidelines and guardrails so that if someone's using AI to create certain things, well, they've got to be clear that, hey, I'm using AI to do this. I haven't vetted it, or I used AI to jumpstart this, but be authentic about it. Don't try to pass off something that you used AI for as your own work, because by knowing that you used AI, it helps refine, and just really make sure that you're not putting something out there that could compromise your brand or any security. So I think that's part of it is just having overall guidelines and really taking some time to think through, like, how do you really feel about AI? How do you want your team members to feel? If your customers ask you, especially being a content company, if a customer comes out and says, hey, did you use AI to create this? I don't want anyone like bumbling because they think, oh, they're going to get in trouble if they say, yeah, we did use AI. So getting all those things answered and talking to your team about it, I think is super important. And then, you mentioned this a lot in your section, and we wholeheartedly agree. Every piece of AI assisted content goes through human strategy, editing, and alignment to ensure it meets the brand guidelines, the tone, the voice. We don't put anything out that we wouldn't proudly say in person. And so
Mm.
AI is really helping us scale and grow, but it's certainly not taking out the credibility and trust that can only come from a very intentional, very human-driven approach.
I'm gonna kick it back to you for the our next couple of questions.
Yeah, so in terms of balancing, how do businesses best balance human intuition with AI-driven CRM and content decisions? So why don't you give me your approach? Of course, you're well-versed in content as well, so feel free to speak about both, but um, love your perspective on how businesses can balance that.
I definitely, again, going back to the human in the loop, I definitely think that businesses need to create guidelines for, or what we used to call business rules, right? There's business rules for all kinds of things. There should be business rules for AI. So making sure that they've checked off that checklist of having fed their models, whatever they're using, having fed it accurate and up-to-date information, making sure that your CRM in particular, that your data is nice and clean. Because, for example, if you were to launch an AI campaign based on a specific criteria of a customer or a prospect, right? And the AI just runs on its own. If that data isn't clean, if somebody has changed jobs or somebody has changed roles or whatever, they're going to receive a piece of information or an email that is not relevant to them. And that can be more harmful, as you know, than to not send anything out at all. So definitely, making sure that your data is clean and that you have some business rules around AI usage are going to be critical. But I'd love to hear more from you on the content side. What would be some of the things that you would institute?
It's really keeping strategy front and center and
Mm.
connection front and center. So AI gives us speed and insights, but it's really the strategic execution and the meaningful connection that requires human judgment. So, really making sure that we've got that right balance of AI driven insights plus intentional human led decision making, which helps us create results. And so, it's having the right source documents that are well researched, well vetted, well fact checked, that then can be used by AI, but starting with clean, reputable, really useful content. Something you said in the very beginning, I think is really great. Is often companies have like really good content from pre AI. Those can serve as really good starting points to let's simplify this, let's break this down, let's, create an outline from this. So there's so much that a company probably has asset wise, but utilizing AI to organize it, know when to use what, how to reference it, how to build, whether it's a custom agent, a custom GPT, or whatever, that does take some skill. It's not just, a simple thing. Some of the things that we create, some of our custom GPTs, I mean, they take hours and hours to initially build. So it's investing on the front end, maybe more significant that you might invest if you just did it, as a human, but so that there's more time saving on the back end. And so it's just balancing all of that. My intention is always it just has to get results, and in order to get results, it has to be valuable. How you get to that value, in some ways, I'll say I don't care, I don't really mean that, but I don't care how you get to it, that has to be the end result, and so if AI is not giving you that, which it won't unless you do all these things, then you know, it's not going to be effective to use. Yes, could you spit out 80 pieces of content in a minute? Absolutely. Are those 80 pieces of content going to get you results? I'm going to bet probably not. So to me, it's all about results and impact you're trying to make. So being able to measure that effectively.
I'm going to ask you the last question, which is
Yeah.
let's look at 2025 and beyond. I've been talking to a lot of companies about future proofing lately. And so this is very big on a lot of companies' minds is what's going to separate the companies who successfully leverage AI from those who misuse it over the next 2 to 3 years. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to I think you've got to really be deeply thinking about this. We are still in the very early stages of AI. I know a lot of people already feel like they're really far behind if they haven't, been following it, and that's just not the case. We are still so into the early stages. So one, you're not behind. So stop thinking that. You've got to deeply think about it and how you are going to use it. And I like to keep things simple. So again, my philosophy is how are we going to integrate it and use it as a tool in our toolbox for the three key areas, drive revenue, decrease cost, and improve efficiencies, and really think of it through that lens and then figure out how you're going to integrate it deeply into your strategy, your culture, and then your own workflows so that you are really treating AI like a partner and a tool and not a threat, or not overly relying on it and creating a lazy team. It's really an opportunity to, I believe, level up in every area because we are able now to take some of these more mundane tasks that AI can do them better than a human and more efficiently. So that way, our human beings can actually give more time to strategy, toward creativity, toward innovation, toward relationships, picking back the phone up again, having face to face conversations because you're not so busy doing that you can actually invest going back to events again. I've been hearing, so much value that people are getting from just going back to in person events because it's something they had taken off the table because they didn't need to for a while because so much could be done. So it's bringing the human being back into the picture in a way that generates meaningful results, but really thinking of AI as, another teammate, a partner, a tool, and integrating it just like you integrate your CRM, right? Your CRM didn't replace salespeople. It just gave salespeople and marketing pros more access to tools to make them more effective. I think AI is like a 100x of that, but I think it's the same type of thinking. What about you? What are you thinking,
Yeah.
feeling?
So I have a slightly different take on the whether you're behind or not. I know a lot of people are afraid, like, oh my gosh, if I'm not already using AI, I'm super behind. I think that if you haven't even thought about it, you are behind. Definitely need to think about how you can incorporate it and just kind of give into the fact that you've already been using AI in a million ways that you may or may not be aware
Yeah.
of, right? Everything from, from searching to, some of the recommendations that are given to you by your shopping experiences or your streaming video experiences. A lot of these things have been AI powered for a long, long time. So I think for me, the way that we need to think about AI is almost like it's going to become almost like another teammate, right?
Yeah.
I think that people need to start thinking about where are the efficiency gaps in my organization, and where are those more, like you said, mindless, mundane tasks, and create like a persona for that AI, like what's their role? What are their parameters? What are the guardrails that they're going to operate under? And how are you going to invest time in training them, just like you would a human employee, so that they become a true teammate and helper, but that there's still human supervision, like I said, human in the loop, right? And
Yeah.
so the people that misuse the AI, the people that continue to, for example, blast out all those obnoxious LinkedIn, mindless pitch slapping, right? That is so clearly, they didn't even do one iota of research into the person. They didn't even use the AI properly to know that I don't need to buy a franchise because I'm already a business owner, for example, right? Companies that continue to use those kinds of methods are going to suffer greatly.
Yeah.
They're going to lose sales. They're not going to, they're just not going to see a return. And just pumping out more of that is not the answer. Right. And so I think that for a company to be truly successful, they need to use these tools very thoughtfully and have guardrails around them. And again, like you said, use them strategically so that they're empowering the humans, and the humans can then do more human things. Like you said, trade shows and live events are fantastic. Humans still want to buy from someone that they
Yeah.
trust, not from some generic thing that's been sent to you as an unsolicited email or direct message.
So this was great. Thank you as always. You just dropped so many amazing knowledge bombs. I can't wait to try some of them out. So I want to leave our audience with some key takeaways. So I'll share from my perspective the things that I hope everyone got from this conversation is humanoid or AI driven content. So always layer that authentic human strategy and voice. Personalization, not intrusion. So use AI insights to deliver relevant, personalized information, but don't cross into that, creepy or overly robotic territory. You've all seen it, you've all felt it. So don't be that person, that bot. And then stay ahead by integrating AI into your culture. If you don't have your own AI manifesto, rules, whatever you want to call it, work on one and really start to think about where you're going to embed AI into your strategy, into your mindset, into your workflows, so that you can treat it as a competitive advantage, amplifying your creativity, not replacing it. What about from you?
From me, definitely if you're a HubSpot user, turn on the breeze. Go ahead and use it, as long as like I said, keeping the human in the loop, right? So making sure that you're not just blindly using the tools, but the tools are there, they're fabulous, and they can really amp up your efficiency. So that's one. Another one is absolutely making sure that your data is clean. Data hygiene is going to be very important. The more that you rely on AI, the more important it is that you not only have those guardrails in place, but also that your data is accurate and clean, so that AI has the right tools to work from, right? That's what feeds the AI. So you want to make sure that that food is actually good, right?
Yes.
And of course, making sure that you're looking at AI as another teammate and not as a threat, and figuring out where AI can create the efficiency so that the humans can be more strategic and go out into the world and have more human connections. And let's not forget that that is the way that they have that lived experience that is going to give them the unique perspective that AI just can't replicate.
I love it. Amazing. Well, thank you very much. This was, again, fantastic. And Thank you to all of you listening in. And if you have questions, if you want more information, our contact information is readily available. We look forward to seeing you on our next CRM Tuesday. So thank you.
Yeah, look forward to those questions and thanks everyone.